We're asked to keep moving so that people behind them can see it.
Discovery Reef, December 26, 2011. Christmas holiday feeding at the Columbus Zoo Aquarium.
The underwater environment is a really completely different environment than the one we live in. You'll notice that the fish don't have legs like land animals do. So they've adapted with fins and gills for the water. The fins is how they get around, and the gills is how they get their oxygen. Anki doesn't have fins or gills, so she had to make some adaptations to enter their environment. You'll notice the silver tank on her back. That's holding compressed air. Full tank has 3,000 pounds per square inch of air in it. If Anki tried to breathe air at 3,000 psi, it would explode her lungs. So you notice the silver valve on the top of the tank. That's called a first stage regulator, and that brings that pressure down to about 40 psi. That's still way too much pressure to try and breathe off of. So notice the hose that comes around from the first stage to the piece that she has in her mouth, and that's called a second stage regulator. That brings the pressure down to about 1 atmosphere, so it's almost like breathing on the surface. And today Anki is walking on the bottom. She's doing that instead of swimming around because of the size of the exhibit makes it difficult to be swimming around in the exhibit. Normally, a diver in open water would have fins on, and that would power them through the water the way the fish do. Another adaptation that Anki needs is our bodies naturally float. So, in order to get down where the fish are, Anki is wearing weights. And she has a vest on that has an integrated belt. It has weights in there, probably about 20 to 25 pounds. And so that helps her sink. And again, in open water, a diver doesn't want to sink to the bottom. He wants to kind of hover in the water column and kind of glide over the reef. So the vest that she's wearing is a special vest called a buoyancy compensator. And one of those hoses coming from the first stage regulator on top of the tank is attached to the vest. And Anki has a little button she can push to add air to the vest. So between her weights pulling her down and her adding air to the vest, an open water diver would adjust that so they just kind of hover in the water. It's a really neat experience, and I encourage anyone who has a chance to learn to dive, or you can just take a dive course at a resort and try it. Anki has a bunch of different food with her. What she's feeding now is kind of large chunks of either smelt, and what we attempt to do is feed large fish first. The large fish, just because of their size, need more food, and they're more aggressive to try and get the food. So we try to feed them first, if their stomach's a little full, so that the smaller fish can get a chance to eat also. Next, you'll bring out a little bit smaller food for the medium-sized fish. Anki will also be feeding the sharks and stingrays today. We have 4 different kinds of sharks in the exhibit. You'll see the bonnethead sharks, one of them swimming in the far left panel. They kind of look like small hammerhead sharks. They're related to the hammerhead, but they're called bonnethead sharks, and ours are full grown. Anki won't be feeding them. They kind of swim in the water column, and it wouldn't be as safe to feed them, so we feed them from the surface. We also have a zebra shark that's about 4.5 feet long. He is off exhibit while the diver's in the water. And if you remember him, he's actually got spots, but he's called a zebra shark, which seems kind of odd. But when these sharks are adolescents, they have stripes like zebras, so that's how they got their name. And now, into adulthood, they lose their stripes and get spots. So right now, Anki is on the bottom feeding our bottom feeding sharks. You'll see these sharks swimming around at the bottom or else on the reef shelves in the back of the exhibit. There's two kinds that you'll see down there. One of them has a large black spot on the side, and that's an epaulet shark. He has kind of an interesting behavior. They hang out in shallow reefs to feed, and if they're not finding any food where they're at, they can actually climb out of the water and use their pectoral fins, up front, to actually walk across the top of the reef out of the water for a little ways to get into a different section of the reef. The other shark that you'll see on the bottom that she's feeding is a brown bamboo shark. Another interesting fact about the sharks is some of the sharks are live bearers. So if their babies come out of the, or born live, they start swimming around right away. And other sharks lay eggs, and the eggs take a little while to hatch. The sharks that she's feeding right now, the epaulet sharks and the brown bamboo sharks, are actually egg layers, and they frequently lay eggs inside Discovery Reef exhibit.